John Lozier. I'm the Executive Director of the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council. I'm the founding director, and we started, I started January 1st, 1990. Before that, for about 5 years, I was the director of the Healthcare for the Homeless project here in Nashville, and working to organize the National Council during that time. So it's been 32 years. Years ago, I dropped out of divinity school and started working on prison issues with an organization called Southern Prison Ministry. We worked a lot on death penalty issues and prisons, trying to stop prison construction and such. And one of the things we did was run a hospitality house for prisoners' families so they could get visits. And not too long after we got that started, homeless people started staying there when prisoners' families weren't there. So I came to know a little bit about homelessness in the apartment upstairs over where my wife and I lived. When the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation announced a demonstration program in healthcare for the homeless, I was part of the local homeless coalition that responded to that and helped to write the application for Nashville. We were one of 19 cities that developed healthcare for the homeless projects as part of that national program, and I got the job establishing and running the downtown clinic. You know, I've always had some need in me to respond in a loving and helpful way to people who were in great need. I think it probably comes from my family. Surely it does. From the faith tradition in which I was raised, and from a sense of real outrage at how things work for some people and don't work for other people in this country. So that's kind of how I got in. There's a little backstory about the origins of the council itself. At the first meeting of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation's program, they divided us up by discipline, and all the project directors were in one room with the tape recorder and the foundation representative, who was our friend Barbara Cananan, who stayed involved all this time. But we got to talking and figured out among ourselves that the foundation was not treating us equally. And at some point, Rudy from Cleveland stood up and turned off the tape recorder, and that was the moment of conception of the National Council. We figured out we needed each other more than we needed the foundation to be happy or their money or anything else. We needed the peer support. At the same time, in the rooms with doctors, in the room with nurses, the room with social workers, they were kind of finding out the same thing. So early on in the national demonstration program, we found that we needed each other. And what the council has been since that time, that was 1985, has been a place to be together and to find each other and to support each other. We've grown, obviously, the federal program in healthcare for the homeless duplicated what we'd done in the demonstration program. And we're now in the council 200 organizations, thousands of individual members, all who come together and develop some pretty important principles about our work. We've decided that the best way to articulate what we're doing is as human rights work, and we've maintained the spirit of learning from each other and supporting each other that we've started with.
How do you feel about the NCAB?
The NCAB's such a critical part of what we do at the National Council. I said that we adhere to human rights principles, and one of the most important of those is that people should be involved in decisions that affect their lives. And an NCAB at local levels all across the country, and local CABs, community advisory or consumer advisory boards, and in the national body, we have found a way to incorporate people who are affected by homelessness and by poor health, and the combination of the two. One of the reasons that has worked so well in the council is that we work on a consensus basis. So everybody's voice has the same value. And in fact, the voice of people who have experienced homelessness, who have experience as consumers in the healthcare system, is a voice that is particularly treasured in our organization, because those of us who do not personally have that experience have so much to learn from people who have lived it, and who have thought about it, and who most of the people in cabs and in NCAB have managed to get out of homelessness, but are still people who understand the experience and care about what their brothers and sisters on the street are experiencing, and have really given so much of themselves to teach those of us who are professional care providers or organizers or whatever, what's real. And without that knowledge base, and without people who are affected helping us to make decisions, being part of the decision making, would be a lot less legitimate in our work. NCAB really gives the council a lot of its legitimacy. It's a rare beast, I think. Bad word, but it's a rare beast in kind of the homeless services world, which tends not to do what we have done, which is rely so heavily on people who have the experience of homelessness.
What have you gained from doing what you do, from helping others?
Love's a wonderful thing. And this position has enabled me to live out my own values. And I've gained a lot of love, My love for other people has grown. I've just reveled in watching my colleagues from around the country in NCAB and in the Clinicians Network and in the respite movement, all through healthcare for the homeless, really come to know first, and then respect, and then love each other. And I've gained, I guess, the main thing is a lot of satisfaction. It's just thrilling for me to sit back at these meetings and watch people interact. It doesn't take much effort on my part. I've been really lucky. One way I put it at a meeting not long ago is that all I really did was set the table, and then people from healthcare for the homeless, consumers and providers alike, all came and brought the food, and then they brought each other. And I just, my job has been keeping the place and figuring out some mechanisms to make that easy for other people, and it's been a great privilege.
What would be your message for the future individuals that would join the table?
Remember that we are just one part of a much larger national and global struggle for human rights. That all work is really local. That we have to find ways to live out our values in the places where we live. And that we can do that, and that is empowering. And expresses the deepest parts of who we are.
Is there any personal message you want to give us?
Stories like yours are the ones that can really touch people, change people. And part of the value of NCAB is that you find a way to tell your stories that is safe for you, that is moving for people who hear your stories, and that hopefully moves them to action. That's kind of that's part of the dream for NCAB. It's been wonderful when we've had congressional briefings, say in Washington, to see the impact that people telling their individual stories has. There's nothing that we as professional advocates can do that matches the power of the individual stories that you bring. Your own story reminds me of some parts of my own history that I didn't talk about earlier. I had a brother who was mentally ill, never really got treatment. I had a sister who married a very rich alcoholic who lost everything, and she ended up sleeping in the van a number of nights. I think one of the things I have learned in the course of all of this is how vulnerable we all are, but how resilient most people really are. It's just tremendously exciting to see people who've struggled with the sorts of things that you just told me about and come out so much stronger and so kind and loving, and embrace other people with all of that. That's what my life's, I hope, been about, is trying to make some of that, help some of that happen.
I think you've done a wonderful job.
Maybe. It's, again, whatever I've done has been a result of learning from other people and calling other people together. And it sticks. Hopefully it sticks.
Where would you like to see all of this go? Do you think it's as big as it can be?
No, I don't. We're currently interviewing for my successor, and the question of where it goes is one that's up in the air a little bit. I think there's plenty of room for growth. We've got maybe half of the Healthcare for the Homeless federal projects involved in the council. Part of the challenge at this point is, as we continue to grow, well, one, it's a reflection of the need continuing to grow. After 3 decades of this work, I'm disappointed that we're still at it, that we haven't been able yet to affect the big picture things that are driving so much homelessness in this country. The real danger at this juncture for us, I think, is growing too big, too fast, losing the sense of intimacy that the council has embodied and that has meant so much to so many people. They're going to be, at this meeting, I think 16 out of the 80 or so who will be here will be people who are brand new to the council. And if we can extend to them what Jenny Metzler's called the big warm embrace of the council, and incorporate them into the fold, that'll be 16 more people, but there are hundreds and thousands of people out there who are engaged in one part of this work or another, and they're all really good people. How can we, the challenge is maintaining the intimacy and the real sense of trust that we've built among each other in this organization as it grows. You can get too big. Mm-hmm. So, we need to think about things like what NCAB's thinking about with the regional structure that you have. Hopefully that will become something that provides, support sort of closer to home and at a scale that's a little more human than these things can become. We had 1,000 people at our national conference this year. And it felt a little different from when we had 600. And that's something we need to watch for. I hope that the council can become a much stronger voice for advocacy around healthcare and social determinants of health. There are lots of other people working on that stuff, but we have such a strong and legitimate base to talk from. That includes the voice of NCAB. It includes the voice of physicians, particularly, and nurses, particularly, who have a lot of respect at seats of power, and continuing to combine all of those and really figuring out what are the points at which we can make a difference in terms of federal policy and state policy and decision making about how what little money there is for this work is spent. If we can bring all those people together and do that, we can still have a really powerful impact. Part of the reason I'm leaving this job is that it is time for somebody to take our organization to the next level. I've been, I'll admit it, pretty good at pulling people together and sort of setting an ethos for the organization. Now what do we do with that? How do we push our movement forward and accomplish something more in the world? And I think we've got some great candidates to help us do that.
What would be your words of encouragement?
Love one another. That's all. Love one another. That's easy. It's so easy. It's so wonderful. That's 3 words. You asked for one.
Love one another.
So if it's just one, it's love.
You're amazing.
That's where it's at.
You're amazing. Thank you so much for everything that you've done.
You're so
and for giving your time to help others. You're
Thanks.
amazing. Thank you.
Thank you, Deidre.
Lord, I ask you to be my guiding force of truth. For some strange reason it had to be. He guided me to Tennessee. People make the world